welcome everyone to the inaugural episode of Otaku, where myself and other otaku talk about otaku topics. And I am here with Matt Dixon of the Life and Times of Anime.
Hello, it's Matt.
Hello. And we're going to be talking today about the Tokyo Youth Ordinance Bill amendment, as you can see from the lower third down there, and the change in law that has showed up recently in what's going to happen in Tokyo. And for a bit of backstory, essentially, Tokyo has this youth ordinance bill that's been around for a long time that restricts the sale of adult-oriented materials to minors. And it was recently amended in a couple of different ways, specifically to restrict the sales of anything involving essentially sexual acts that would be illegal in real life. Anything containing that that's anime and manga now has to be classified as 18 or over and sold as adults only. And that's been a big issue for a lot of mangaka who see that as de facto censorship. Now, the law only calls for the industry to sort of self-regulate this. There's nothing on the books about it, which is kind of the problem. It's very vague about what's actually going to happen or not happen as a result of this law. And one of the main issues, actually, that I think Matt brought up is that there aren't a lot of adults-only sections in Tokyo. You know, a lot of the bookstores don't have it. So this could do a good job of kind of censoring stuff out there.
Well, it seems to have, so far not had any major effects, as we haven't seen any news other than the fact that what's been going on with the law, not exactly what mangakas and anime people have been doing about it, except the news we talked about the other day about, I'm saying about law, the anime makers or manga makers not going to a convention because of, so it's starting to have its effect now.
Yeah,
which is what we were waiting for in the first place when we first discussed this. We weren't sure what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing the ripple effect.
And that's one of the big things, is that we don't, there certainly have been no crackdown from Tokyo police as a result of this. Yeah. There's been no practical effect from the law side, or the law enforcement side. One of the difficulties is the fact that censorship in Japan has basically been focused on Article 175 of the Criminal Code of Japan, which was written in 1907. And that's been the fundamental criminal code about all this, which states, and I will quote, a person who distributes, sells, or displays in public an obscene document, drawing, or other objects shall be punished by imprisonment with work for not more than 2 years, a fine of not more than 2.5 million yen, or a petty fine. The same shall apply to a person who possesses the same for purposes of sale. And so, of course, the big question is, what does obscene mean?
Yeah.
And that has traditionally just meant uncovered pubic hair or genitalia. So as long as that's covered, that's fine. Now, the Tokyo Youth Ordinance is more specific. It covers things like if you're selling a cell phone to a minor in Tokyo, you have to have internet content filtering installed and enabled. Stuff like that. But it's very specific. This is the first time that I know of that a law in Japan has specifically targeted anime and manga, and is clearly trying to affect that.
It's strange, but it's a very tiny positive. Is the government notices anime.
True. Very true.
The only tiny positive there is. But it's strange that they would target just that specific industry, because there are obviously other industries that do the same thing as anime and manga. More, I dare say, live action.
Yes, absolutely.
Sort of pornography as well, and stuff like this. Just, I kind of pretty much lost all of my words this evening. It's really, really useful when recording something.
That's quite alright. And actually, it's one of the interesting things too, is the law only covers stuff that is for sale or rent. It's not going to affect TV, for example. As far as I can tell.
That's right,
It's not going to affect doujinshi because it's focused on the industry. So it's really only about DVDs, Blu-rays, and manga volumes, which is...
But it doesn't affect merchandise, like physical items, because
I don't think so.
It's not hard to go onto an anime or manga selling website that also sells merchandise and find sort of explicit items. So I was wondering if it affects them, and we'd be getting little black bars or figures.
Yeah, there are some figures that are definitely adults only. But no, this appears to be only anime and manga, and so that is surprising. And again, I agree. I think this is to a great extent because the government recognizes the popularity of anime and manga, and recognizes the need to address that. And the fact that there is, let's not forget, there is lots of really naughty stuff out there. And I think they're trying to sort of clean that up, at least within Tokyo. Which, I understand.
Yeah. Well, this could have pretty much a really bad effect as well. That all the anime directors out there and mangaka that were originally intended to do something, that would be considered, that would have exposed such and such. Now we're going to be seeing more stuff like High School of the Dead. Just, a lot more stuff with extreme fan service. It's extremely inappropriate, but it's not breaking the law.
Well, and that's part of the question, is that, and you're absolutely right, because, the new amendment focuses on actual sexual activity. Not just, panty flash, for example. Now, of course, the question is, do they classify that as sexual content? Arguably, you could do that.
Yeah, because it is, obviously it is in some ways, but in other ways it isn't.
Yeah.
If we're going into the specifics, it isn't. But on a just sort of general term, it is sexual content. It's there, sexual content is there for people to get aroused. A panty shot is there to get people aroused or excited.
Exactly.
So on one side, it's a not one-sided argument, sort of a scale kind of thing. It's like it all depends on the decider, the judge or whatever would be in this. So then it becomes even worse. Then it's an opinion thing. It's not a governmental law that's deciding it. It's people's opinion. When a lot of times it'll just be one man, one decider that the case has been taken to.
And that's one of the big questions: is if is this law being passed more so that there can be, one-off crackdowns on specific problematic manga, and basically everything else will be ignored? We've certainly seen plenty of cases of that, and we see that with the existing laws in the book. So all sorts of extreme stuff gets passed, and then suddenly there was this, Sua Yuji did this manga called Mishitsu, which apparently is really pervy. And he got slammed on violating Article 175, and all of his manga were removed from the stores, and he got a fine and things like that. And I think that was more, oh my gosh, we found one thing, somebody found this out, we have to do something about it. So that they got laws in the books now to do that, but the question is, will this be applied broadly or only when there's a problem?
It's likely to be when there's a problem. If for example, because it's mostly parents that are going to be complaining about it. Yeah. And if the parents aren't complaining about it, and it's making the company a profit, which in turn makes the government a profit. Yeah. Why on earth would they bother? Until it's recognised as a problem by the community. Yeah. The adult community, not the otaku community. The otaku would never see porn as a problem. But once parents start complaining the government's going to take action. Yeah. But otherwise they're not going to. That's what we're going to see, and that's the poor side of it. It's good in the way that it's a lot more likely that, say, an anime that you like that is a bit risky. This way, it's less likely it'll get picked up. But it'll mean that the government's just picking and choosing what problems they want to handle. Yeah. Which is also bad.
Yeah. And of course, the other question is how much this is really going to affect anime and manga sales. Again, this is a Tokyo-only bill. And, Otaku in America only buy stuff online, really. And I've got to suspect that otaku in Japan can either just buy it off Amazon, or go outside of Tokyo to buy what they want. And I think too, especially if this is one of those things that is that is kind of that extreme, that otaku are going to be willing to order it off Amazon or find someplace to get it instead of just going down to the local gamers shop and buying it.
Well, maybe that's there's the lighter slide.
Yes, the lighter slide
to this whole thing that it's just popped in there. Maybe they're just trying to keep it off the streets. If you're buying this stuff, because there's only one 100% pornographic manga being sold in England, as far as I know, in the shops that I go to. It would be useful if I remembered the name, but it's a traditional one, high school girl. It's always wrapped in cellophane, so I don't actually know what the content. Except Amazon always recommends it to me, which kind of pisses me off. But anyway, they just want to keep it off the streets, so it's not an eyesore, because you don't. These days you don't often see sculptors putting up new statues in the street that are naked people. So it's just to prevent the parents, the businessmen or women walking in the street, bumping into a kid, reading something in the street and looking down and, oh my god, it's porn. So it could be the good thing that it's just trying to keep it off the street, and they're not going to bother if you're buying it offline. Online. But if they're buying it online, it's not a problem to them, is it? Because it's done in home. It's not a problem in the outside world.
Yeah, and like you said, I think this is more trying to, this is more a preventative measure, so that if somebody makes something that's kind of nasty, but it isn't quite porn, and obviously that's what it's focusing on, then it has to be sold in a way that isn't easily visible to minors. I guess one of the big questions too is, I think a lot of the concern is that mangaka will not be able to address issues of teenage sexuality in their stories anymore.
Which is a really popular issue. A lot of the time it's more of a subtle way of doing it, which is probably the more appreciated way, but sometimes the more obvious ways get through to people more, and that is a good reason for mangakas to be, and anime directors really, to be worried about.
And to be fair, the amendment does have some language. I don't have it up here with me, but it has some language saying that basically it's against sexual activity involving minors. It is essentially prurient. You can still sell a manga guide to the human body, for example. And to sexuality, as long as it's not isn't it awesome to screw people all the time? So I'm sure you can explore these issues as long as you do it in a way that is sensitive. But again, the big question is, how will it be enforced? Who knows?
One thing we mentioned as well is what will the effect be? And as I said earlier, we have seen one of the effects of manga sales in the fact that manga distributors are now not going to a convention where they would sell their mangas. That's, I won't say a major effect, but not a minor effect either. It's there and it's reasonably important. That the whole industry has decided, just because of this amendment, not to go to a convention.
And as we talked about the other day, that isn't a major effect on fans who were...
It affects the sales.
Right.
If the fans don't like the company, why would they buy the product?
Exactly. And you've got fans who probably have already bought their tickets to Tokyo International Anime Fair, and who were planning on going, all this stuff, and all of a sudden, wow, half the people I wanted to go see aren't going to be there. That kind of sucks, and I'm going to have to haul my butt off to Chiba Prefecture to see them. That is going to affect things quite a lot.
And it could create more splintering between anime companies and manga companies. You don't see it as much in mangas, but anime companies, when they're developing an anime, work together traditionally. A lot of them bring in help from other companies to get animes done. And if this stuff this kind of what we described as yesterday, petty stuff, is what's happening. Some companies are saying, well, you're abiding by the law, I'm not going to work with you, kind of thing. We could see more of that, and that is a bad thing.
That's a very bad thing. Yeah.
But the quality of anime lowers, and all sorts of stuff like that. But luckily we won't see that in manga because it's quite traditional for there just to be one developer of a manga, just one person working on a manga or two, well, anything from up to 5. But you're not going to have that kind of splintering, obviously.
Yeah. And part of the reason why this has come to a head is the fact that probably 95% of the anime companies are based in Tokyo. The manga are kind of spread out, but Tokyo or anime is very Tokyo centered. So people really have to make those decisions very direct. And of course, Tokyo is the biggest city in Japan. So that is a major center for both for fans and for the company. So if you're going to very clearly draw battle lines where folks say, okay, we're going to we're going to follow the law, we're not. That's like you say, it's going to be really bad. I wonder if anyone's going to move out of Tokyo.
That's probably pretty likely. If we're seeing companies deciding not to hold a convention, because where you have your company located isn't exactly important, so they might still work in Tokyo, but the really important stuff like where they sell the stuff and where their conventions are and where stuff gets released first, because a lot of times stuff does get released in Tokyo and then spread outward.
Yeah. And I mean,
just like it does. So that really important stuff will change, but I'm not sure people will move out of Tokyo. Just what they do will move out of Tokyo.
True. Yeah. Well, actually, Kyoto Animation has said for a long time that they love being in Kyoto because it's cheaper, and they don't get all the politics of Tokyo just in terms of dealing with all of the regulations and whatever. It's just easier being out of the big cities. So I wonder if that might have some effect on things. I don't know. I could see a few folks moving out. Obviously, the big ones have got just too much invested in the studio to move, but it could shake things up a bit, which would be not a bad thing.
Yes, well, that's the thing as well. Because from the way things are going, it's like this law is sticking. They're not going to change it back.
Yeah.
So on a really more idealistic or fantasizing kind of way of looking at it, there is a chance that companies now will think, well, because I don't know the exact figures of how much profit they get from Tokyo, but they might start thinking, let's sell more to the Western world and make up that profit for Tokyo, which is a possibility. It's quite a likely possibility.
It is.
I really should have looked up the exact statistics for the profits compared to Tokyo and the rest of Japan, but I'm assuming Tokyo takes up at the very least more or pretty much on the dot of 20% of profit for all of manga all over Japan. Because it's a big place and there's a lot of people.
Yeah. It's certainly more than any other spot.
Yeah.
And certainly, we've seen a lot more in the way of collaborations between Japan and the West in terms of the Afro Samurai and the Marvel anime and things like that. There's plenty of opportunities there. So it could be they're saying that, hey, Hollywood likes us more than Tokyo does.
Yeah. Well, Hollywood will welcome anything as long as it makes a profit.
Yeah.
I'm surprised legalized prostitution isn't legal, in LA or Hollywood. So, looking at it now, it's probably very likely that one or two companies will say, let's just start selling in LA. Let's actually build an office in LA. We'll stay in Tokyo and we'll hire people in America to start doing this stuff for us.
Yeah, I know Bandai's done that. I don't know how successful it's been, but they opened their California office, I think it's a great way of opening up those lines. At the very least, the American companies have someone to talk to, roughly in the same time zone. It just makes things a lot easier, and I think it would be great seeing some of these studios focus more. And heck, not just America or the UK, the rest of the world. Start making stuff that is interesting to other countries and push out the boundaries. That would be really interesting to see. Let's make something for Europe.
We're saying this now like it's all up to the companies in Japan, but it really isn't, is it? Because the Western world also has to extend that helping hand and say, if Tokyo is screwing around with you, come work with us.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the reasons why it might not happen, because how many Americans that are not, how many American businessmen do you know that keep up with Japanese law?
True.
So that's possibly one of the reasons why. Because if an American heard it now, an American businessman heard it now, would probably think, I could make a profit off this.
Yeah.
But, it's not in the newspaper, so how are they going to find out?
Yeah.
If it's not in the business section, it doesn't exist.
Yeah. It's true. And especially because we haven't, like you say, we haven't seen any material effects other than, moving off the Tokyo International Anime Fair, but there hasn't been, a drop in sales or somebody being raided or whatever. So, who knows? And as we said before, it could be one of these things that just it sits on the books and no one does anything about it for 10 years.
It's to coin it to a more scientific thing. It's quite like the Hadron Collider. Either nothing happens or a black hole opens. But in this case, there's either a really good black hole that we want that will just get rid of all the dark chocolate in the world. Who likes dark chocolate sauce? And then there's the other one that will get rid of all the Toblerone. And who wants there to be a world without Toblerone?
Not me.
Yes, I just mentioned 2 types of chocolate.
And of course the reality will undoubtedly be somewhere in the middle that we can't possibly predict. As reality.
Well, obviously it has to have some sort of good, better effect for the Western world. That's a bonus, really. But to us, obviously, if the sales drop in Japan, but they stay the same over here, why should we care?
And we certainly don't have that same issue with importing stuff. We'll import Witchblade, sure, no problem. So that's interesting. So it's certainly a big open question. I'm really curious to see where it's going to end up, but I think, like you say, there are good possibilities and bad possibilities. We'll just have to keep watching and see what happens.
And there's too many possibilities to really even predict an outcome. Even if you did have all the statistics, all the likelihoods, all the statements from companies, it's pretty much impossible. But even 3 weeks down the line, we won't have any more of an idea. Until we start seeing a drop in sales figures and announcements on our end. If we see announcements on our end for tons more dubs being done or more translations being done, then we're going to know the effect to an extent. But and as well with each possibility, there's a chance that it will just reverse itself. There might be a big spurt of more anime and manga to the Western world, but that could eventually drop. When the rule, because we discussed this as well, could the rule possibly just be a temporarily enforced thing? For now, they're going to be really hardcore, and then once people start abiding by the law, the government's going to think, right, everyone's toned down now, they're abiding. We don't need to be as much on their case.
That makes a lot of sense. And of course we have tons of other factors involved as well in terms of the Japanese economy and the otaku economy as a sort of weird bubble thing, and over here in the Western world and the money we do or don't spend on anime. There's just so many different things involved. So I guess in the words of Douglas Adams, don't panic.
But the one thing I kind of want to mention is this could have an effect. The law itself have an effect on the way American. This is specifically America as well that sells anime and manga, because America's got this weird stereotype of being extremely prudish. in a lot of the major places, you know, in some of the lax places like Las Vegas, it's not as extreme, but they are a lot more prudent, and business companies probably think a lot along the same lines of Japan. You know, if I release this, is there going to be a moral outcry from the parents?
Yeah.
But again, sort of the UK is quite bad with this as well. So if the government of either of our countries gets wind, you know, proper wind, proper wind, gets an inkling of this and understands the law fully, they might think maybe we should introduce this law, which would be very, very bad because we have little enough anime and manga today. Introducing this law will very likely mean we have even less.
Yeah. Well, although if you introduce this law, it would be minor compared to all the laws we already have on record. I mean, you know, if you make an animated film, there can't be child sex in it. Not a problem so far. But you're absolutely right. You know, seeing Tokyo sort of crack down on, especially, you know, animation and comics, and having other governments see that as something else that they should sort of keep an eye on, you know, that is worrying. Now, fortunately, we have a fairly long history of people being uncomfortable with that level of censorship. So hopefully, we'll see something where, you know. I'll put it this way. One of the things that surprised me about the Tokyo Youth Ordinance Amendment is the fact that it went through so quickly. And it was one of the interesting things. Folks said it kind of got passed, just shoved right through, so to speak. And they, I think if that kind of thing tried to be passed over here, I think there'd be a lot more public outcry and a lot more stuff from like the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund and groups like that would be, you know, much more on the prowl. I think, you know, we've had so many attacks against comics and such over the past. Folks are a lot more sensitive on the comic side of things. I think over there, they just, you know, it's been so freewheeling for so long that folks are kind of blindsided by it.
Yeah, most of them probably aren't completely dumbfounded that this kind of stuff has happened.
Yeah.
But over in America mostly, but it's creeping into the UK as well now. You know, stuff like video games, comic books, they're constantly under battering from parents, you know, saying this is inappropriate, I want this removed.
Yeah.
You know, not censored like it is over in Japan, that's what they're saying, they want it censored. Over here they want it removed. You know, we're going to the ultimate extreme of just completely banning it. You know, online sales to physical sales, you know, it's gone. So we are just kind of don't know what the word, just, you know, used to it. So we have groups. We already have groups ready to defend this kind of stuff. You know, groups that the government listens to. In Japan, I don't think they have Gamers Alliance.
No.
Such and such.
No, it's why all these manga band together and they brought in some lawyers to say, oh my gosh, we got to do something about it. And unfortunately, I think, you know, it was a bit too late to organize something for the first time right then.
And because it went so sort of quickly, there was just no time to go against it. You know, it's not like a lot of the laws that go through in the States and the UK where they announce the fact that they're deliberating over it, and then people have a chance to say no, we don't like this. In Japan, it was pretty much go on then. It's a law now.
Yeah, I mean, folks forget that Japan has a very different legal system than we do. And it's just, and again, this isn't, you know, the entire Japanese government. This is the Tokyo government. And it's, you know, it's easier for them to introduce something, say here's what we're going to do, and, you know, you have 7 days. Boom. You know, and you know, like we were saying, I think when you're trying to organize a group, I think, you know, if this stuff had been in place, they could have done a lot more, but it just came too fast.
Well, again, it's more of that's another possible. We're always mentioning possibilities on this because again, we just have no idea what could come from this. But this is another good possibility from it. This will prepare mangaka and the public, just otakus in general, against this kind of thing again.
Yeah.
This law may be permanent, and no matter how much the new groups that will be formed try, it will never be removed. But new laws will be stopped from getting passed because of this first law. Because I'm pretty sure whatever the first law against comics was in the States and the UK was put across, it was never removed and still hasn't been. But it sparked the inspiration for people to form these groups and say, we have a right to say this. We have a right to have this in our video games. As long as we do this such and such, as long as we put an 18 sticker on it, we should be allowed to sell it. And that's what could happen over in Japan, as long as we, put melons in all mangas, we can put such and such in it. I think this is a good law to sort of be passed to an extent, keeping for all the good possibilities that could come from it. I think it outweighs all the bad possibilities that could come from it. And if it means we're going to be seeing less child hentai whenever we're accidentally whenever we accidentally mistype on Google, then keep this law. But if this is what it takes to get mangaka and the otaku community ready for the next law, which might not be good, it might say there can be no relationship. And Japan, you never know, Japan has a completely different culture to us. So they could say, no kissing, no holding hands. I mean, that's a bit of more of a fascist kind of thing, but it could be that extreme. Because America and the UK has been that extreme. Sometimes with their laws, obviously they don't get passed, but it's possible. Well, and if they have no group, how are they going to defend against it? It will get passed, and then manga may be ruined.
And that's the thing, is that, now hopefully there will be a group so that when Osaka tries to pass this law, or Kyoto tries to pass this law, or their version thereof, folks will be able to, stand up and say, no. We can but hope.
That's the thing again, it's all hope, possibilities, chances, maybe. There is no finite at the moment. The only finite we've got is that some companies are pretty shitty to their fans. In the end. Because of petty things. But, that's some. Again, that's not a yes or a no, that's just in the middle.
So
I do hope there is less of this stuff between companies and the government. We're not allowed in your clubhouse, we'll make our own. Comics.
It's just, like you said, it's petty, it's very junior high. Can we please just get past that and actually sit down and talk, which is why we've got Otaku to actually, sit down and talk about this stuff as reasonable human beings and work out, okay, what does this mean?
Because, again, the company throwing his tantrum isn't going to work then, is it? He's not going to make the government say, they're upset, we better remove this law. They're not, that's just going to make them think, well, if they're that petty, they're probably capable of doing worse than what they are doing now. So this law needs to stay, this heinous is probably keeping the law. But if the companies would say, can we please just get together, and if we come up with some statistics and statements, evidence that this law is not necessary, then there's a chance that this law is going to get removed, and all that good stuff.
Or at least a clarification, like we said. What is this? What qualifies? What's going to happen? What are the legal implications, so forth and so on, and of course one of the problems is that the government isn't going to sit down and say, well, we're really not going to follow it except in rare cases. They're going to have to, but at least you can sit down and get a little more detail, and that would certainly help the situation a lot more than saying, well, we're going over here.
We're going to a different forest to make our own clubhouse. But again, the moving to a different clubhouse, as we want to call it now, which is a clubhouse, not a convention. That does sort of tie into companies moving out of Tokyo to do their business.
True.
So it's sort of a bad that comes with the good in the end, really.
Yeah.
Because if they're selling stuff outside of Tokyo, why are they going to hold their conventions in Tokyo?
Yeah. And, I mean, it could very well be that this will cause a spreading of anime and manga into the hinterlands, if you will. Because Tokyo is such the otaku haven, it could be that this will cause a renaissance in like anime and manga and gaming stores throughout Japan, where now all of a sudden this stuff is more available out there because that's where they're willing to sell this stuff.
Well, again, just another possibility.
Yeah, exactly.
But that would definitely be a good thing because Tokyo really is. Tokyo pretty much should be a different country for a lot of its things. It's 100% more open-minded, but at the same time, probably 30% more closed-minded with its opinions and such and such. But it's got a totally different classification to the rest of Japan.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the reasons why it doesn't sell out. They don't sell it to the Western world because it's only selling in Tokyo. It's not selling in all of Japan. That's another thing that probably a lot of otakus don't think about. It's not Japan that's an anime lover's haven. It's Tokyo.
Yeah.
And probably a few prefectures just near Tokyo.
Where's Akihabara?
Exactly. So, if it did spread outside Tokyo and into the rest of Japan, then maybe the industry will say, well, if the rest of Japan can do it, then why can't the Western world?
Yeah, true.
And if the Western world could do it, that would be fantastic, because the Western world, on a whole, has got a lot more of a population than Japan. So they're going to make a big profit.
Yeah. Now if we can just find ways of getting people to actually, watch anime.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's changing,
Because only otakus ourselves, at the moment, can only do it one person at a time.
Yeah.
It's like that's what myself and you are trying to do. Instead of doing one at a time, do it 3 at a time, 4 at a time. Which is, it just spreads it quicker, and the quicker the spread, the quicker we get dubs of Twilight and Medusa no Index.
And anime is a very personal thing. It's not like cooking, where it's like, if you want to learn to cook, you kind of grab a cookbook and you try out stuff. You can absolutely, show someone the first episode of Index and they'll say, and then you show them an episode of Ghost in the Shell and they're blown away, or of, Haruhi, whatever. There are so many different directions into it that it's not something that we can just say, okay, we're going to show you this and crowd, and we're going to make you all anime fans. It's just, it's a very personal thing. Yeah.
Anime is probably an anime and manga, really. A manga and light novels, Japanese light novels. Over here they're called novella. But they are the same thing. But anyway, the anime is an incredibly varied thing. Probably more varied than film. I mean, there's a lot of films out there. There is a lot of different films out there. But anime is so much more. There can be so much more in just one genre. Because how many different, because I like Haruhi Suzumiya. That is technically a high school anime.
Yeah.
I don't like Oron Watchmaду Ichio's Club. And that's a school anime. So it's so much more varied, because if you like sci-fi, there's only very few other sci-fi films you don't like. You tend to like, or at least appreciate, all sci-fi films.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the problems as well to increasing the popularity of anime, because probably most people have tried anime. It's just the people that introduce them to anime don't know them well enough to know what anime they would like.
Exactly. Or you stumble across Pokemon, or you stumble across Yu-Gi-Oh! People folks tell you that's anime. Don't care.
Kiddie stuff that just has no storyline or real what Pokemon has storyline. At least the first 2 seasons have storyline. Some thought. In a way. So that's one thing I've never really considered. That it's not the fact that people are trying it; it's that people are getting shown the wrong stuff. Because it is so personal. It's very similar to art, paintings. Because I saw the Mona Lisa, it was quite boring. Don't see it, and then minds explode.
And Hayao Miyazaki has helped a tremendous amount. He's kind of he's definitely the guy who, if you don't like anime, try this and you'll definitely appreciate it. And there's other stuff you got to find your in. I've got a friend of mine who is a father of 8, I think. And he just does not like anime. There's just something about it that he just cannot get past. And I'm trying to find that thing that's going to get him in. And
maybe he was beaten up by a Pokemon.
And I mean, the funny thing is, he grew up with Speed Racer, Battle of the Planets, a lot of the 60s and 70s stuff, and he liked that when he was a kid. But I just, again, it's tough to find that thing that's going to get him interested. And to be fair, he's never going to be an otaku.
Definitely.
He may like certain anime. He may get into it on that level. But it's kind of like, becoming a fan of, I don't know, crocheting. There is only a certain size of that market. So we'll see.
And it's also extremely surprising what anime people like.
True.
In the end, because 5 minutes with me, you'll probably be able to predict what animes I like. But certain people like animes totally different to their personalities. I've introduced Hanamaru Kindergarten to a few people. That I didn't expect them to like it. I just mentioned it. I just said, I'm watching Hanamaru Kindergarten. And they went gaga. They loved it more than me.
Interesting.
And that's surprising. Anime is weird. So I think it's subliminal messages.
That makes sense.
Some sort of drug.
Okay.
And different drugs per genre.
I see. That would explain a lot of things, actually. Would certainly explain Gynax. So again, I think we pretty much hit the Tokyo Youth Ordinance Bill amendment. Like you said, I think it's certainly too early to tell. There could be good, there could be bad, and we gotta wait it out and see what happens.
It would be something good to in another otaku or otaku's life to come back to in a month to see if there are any more effects. Because at the moment it looks like there will be some sort of new effect. I'm guessing 2 weeks. There will be some sort of news story. Maybe a minor news story, it might be a major news story, but there will be some sort of effect that we can see and we can use to predict the future in a little better clarity.
We'll definitely have to return to this topic in the future and see what happens. All right, so very good. I think that does it for our first episode of Otaku. Again, thanks, Matt, for joining us.
It was a pleasure. I have a back scratcher.
Excellent. Everyone needs more back scratchers. And until next time, this is Brent. Take care.